Nice day on Tuesday with sunshine.
Hello,
High
everybody. Hi, this is me.
61.
Pretty much, I am here, and it's been a very interesting week. I just finished working, and so now I'm coming home to the family. It was surprising with some movies, you know, movies to watch. Say I'm gonna do and drive home. Wait. I want to say a couple things. Last couple days, we got a chance to do some cool stuff. We got a chance to actually go and go to the protests, which wasn't much of a protest, unfortunately. I was shocked to see how little or few people that were actually there. You know, I was expecting a protest to really be a protest and not be like just a thing where people say it's going to be a protest. You know, I think we're subdued. I think we're subdued, yo. Like we're at a point where no one knows what that. I mean, especially New Yorkers, I guess. Us here in NYC, we don't have much of a fight left in us. I guess we're so used to being oh, thanks. We're so used to being um, um, we're so used to being, this Democrat state kind of thing, where pretty much they're constantly telling us what to do. That we're not used to thinking on our own, huh? At the same time, though, I don't know. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it is the case. Maybe not that many people knew about the protests and stuff, you know. So because of that, they weren't able to. Oh goodness, it wasn't person just person across the street. Oh my goodness, person. So what happened was like they're afraid to protest because there's so many things. We have a right to do that. I don't understand this asking permission business to assemble and to assemble at a park. They shoot everybody away. I saw the video by I think his name is Jason Goodman, and he presented a video, and it was about how they were told by the order of the governor that this protest is hereby over, or exit the park, and it was about 50 people in City Hall on Friday. Today's Sunday. May 1st was the protests. Well, hopefully there'll be more protests, but as you can see, what they're doing is that they're just not. They're not. People are afraid. They're afraid to protest. They're afraid of this of the Rona. They're afraid of the CV. Afraid of just everything. And I was listening to a preacher the other day, and he was talking about how there's like an agenda from the elite. One, we always talk about this and how the elite has this thing where they must talk about, they must do a disclosure thing. They have to tell you the truth. That they can tell it to you in any way possible. They can tell you in a story. They can tell it to you in a poem. They can tell it to you in a song, in a movie. Tell it to you on the news. But they have to tell us something. It's kind of like a thing in the Bible where you have the angels have to present themselves before God, and it has to say, so what are you doing? And it says, I'm doing this, and they have to kind of speak the truth. So even the devil has to speak the truth at some point. It's like he had in the case with Job, he had it where it's like the devil was he says, where are you going? What you doing? He said, I've been going to and fro from the earth and I'm going roundabout, going all over the earth, to and fro, back and forth, And he says, so and God, consider my servant Job, and he's like, I can't touch Job. He's protected. You protect him. He says, does Job fear God for nothing? He says, let me touch him, and he will curse you to his face. There's a lot of people who are going through a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff being fear. There's endless fear in terms of having to deal with not being able to pay your mortgage, not being able to pay for food, have to stand online. And when you stand online, it's just one of those very very big, very very long lines. You're not exactly sure how long or what's up or what's going to happen next. So what ends up happening is that you are fearful or become fearful, and fear has the cortisol, and cortisol is the fear hormone, and it makes us weak. There's adrenaline, it makes us strong to escape, but then this cortisol makes us weak, just anxiety, fearful hormone. And so with that, one of the things is that you have this situation where you have people who are trying to make sense of all this. It's like I work in a job where it's a hardware store type job, and what happens is that we help people. But lately, we've had to actually close our store, and we've had it where only people are buying things online, and then we have to bring it to them, and that's a different kind of element altogether. It's like human element. It's like people are scared, and I see that. I really understand that people are scared and they become quite fearful. And there's a part where we have to give them mercy, and we have to give them concern and compassion, because you know what? If you're not afraid, you're almost like a loony in terms of like how everything is going. I was talking to one of the people at work, and I said to them, I said, how much this thing, everything, all the news is flipped like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, right? And so with all the news constantly flipping, right, you have it where 1 second the news says eggs are good for you to eat. Next it says eggs are bad for you to eat. Now it goes back and says, oh, eggs are good for you in this context. Instead of giving you all these different things, eggs are bad for you in this context, to a point where people don't know whether to touch an egg or to even look at a chicken ever again. So instead of them like giving them, a sound advice and sound here, this is what you should do, it's more or less along the lines of just be like they were talking about how it says that the masks, how they're subjective, they have issues with them, they don't do what they say to do, and so people come up with videos and all kinds of grams and pictures about how the mask is going to help you, yada yada yada, and all that, So and then so what happens is that you have it where it doesn't help you like it's supposed to, but people are going to continue to believe it because they'd rather be safe than sorry. And sorry being that they're going to just reinfect themselves with whatever illness they already have. It's kind of like I was talking to my family about this. It's like, imagine you have the pieces of all these little these sicknesses, like microbes, right? And you funnel in microbes, bacteria into your face, right? And as you funnel more bacteria into your face, what ends up happening is that eventually you have like bacteria A, then you got bacteria B. Every time you inhale and exhale, it's supposed to be like inhale A, you exhale A, and then you're supposed to like inhale fresh air or negative A, and then or fresh air with fresh bacteria and everything like that, and you breathe in more of the same A that you had before. So you breathe in A, and you're supposed to breathe it out, but you breathe it in back in again. So now you're in a sense reinfecting yourself with the same thing. Your body's saying get out, and now you're putting it back inside again. And then you have it where it's like, I gotta go right here, right, 3, 2, oh, can't go. So what happens is that you are filled with A, and you continue to be filled with A, and then B, and then C, and instead of getting rid of it, now you have a more concentration of the stuff your body's trying to get rid of. It's like, get rid of this thing. Now, people say, well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's better to have that and have bad stuff come in. It's like, but you have bad stuff inside you already. It's like the thing with cancer. I had this conversation with one of the guys at work, and we were just sitting there talking about this, and it was like saying that it's like, we have cancer cells inside of us. I've said this already before, and I keep saying this because I want to just kind of emphasize the fact that that's the case. We have cancer cells inside of us that could any second, based on anything, any situation, can be activated. So because based on different stresses, and our goal is to not be stressed out to where it gets activated, and so now we're going to suffer from it. Instead, what we want to do is that we want to be able to live lives and be balanced, and so that never rises up to where it actually hurts us. But those things are inside us already. It's kind of like it's in our system. It's like the mutations in our system already. So you have that. The next thing you have too is like where you have it where it's mutations of our system. Two, you have it where there are harmful bacteria, and harmful bacteria because them suckers are alive. Okay, some of them are alive. And with the live bacteria, what you got is that you got a scenario where these live bacteria could harm you, and they're trying to leave your body, or they've already been processed trying to leave your body. And then what you do, you just kind of breathe it back in again. So, and there's another thing too about there's probiotics. There's the good bacteria, and there's the good, like yogurt and stuff that people like to eat. And I think yogurt's kind of weird. I always feel like it's fungusy, moldy, yucky, right? And I'm always afraid to touch it. And so what happens is like people have to eat yogurt. So when they use a lot of antibiotics, what happens? You end up having a thing that kills all your antibodies in your body, or your good bacteria in your body. And what ends up happening is that you get sick and you get hit with something that's not resistant to that's no longer resistant to antibiotics. So because of that, you have a thing that it can't be killed. Can't be killed by normal means. So that people resort to all kind of poisoning structures and things like that to try and kill out things that are just inside that would normally not hurt you, but kind of just live inside with you alongside of all your other systems. And instead of it, what they do now, the emphasis and the focus is now on that creature that was once just kind of laying dormant, giving life to it because now there's nothing else to eat. So, and when the creature has nothing to eat, it's kind of like that battery thing in the Matrix when the machines can't get the sunlight, they turn humans. They start feasting on humans, and that's freaky, Anyway, so that's what happens when you have these creatures inside of us that have no food to eat. They turn on the host, or turn on the environment. Imagine the whole Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome thing, right? Where you're just kind of like in the midst of Mad Max, and then you have the epoch eclipse where they all get burned out, and it's all wasteland, and there's nothing to eat. So now people turn into cannibalism and stuff. So that's what happens when there's no food to eat. So people start eating each other, and that's crazy. And you never want to get to that level, but that's one of those things where you got to be aware of. Because in every apocalyptic movie, they always turn to that. By the way, kind of a little hint there for us. Not to mention, you talk about a lot of things in terms of some things, what they do with the like the babies that that they aborted and stuff. What do they do with those babies? Some people they just throw them away, medical waste. No, they don't do that. There's a whole industry out there, collagen, and they have human collagen. And where do they get human collagen from? You guessed it. So when they have that, what they do with it, they turn it into industry. They turn a person to death into industry. And that, my friend, is a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. So, with that being said, just a couple things, I want to say. You know what? I'm not sure exactly what to do at this point. I just know that I got to trust God and ask God to give us strength. Because, we have done protests. We've done many protests in our life. And this whole asking permission to protest business, that is so counterproductive. It's kind of like, I want to throw stones at you. Is it okay if I do that? It's kind of like, no, it's not okay for you to throw stones at my window. Things like that. So it's like, okay, well, I guess we can't have protests. When in fact, like back in the day when they put 2% tax on tea. 2% tax on tea. They taxed the tea. Revolution, baby. It was revolution. See, I ain't calling for the revolution because I ain't my job to do it because I ain't got, I got no means to revolt. I don't have a posse of people with me. I'm just me and my family. All we have is some people like-minded people who could it's like the abolition thing. When people began to talk about how bad slavery was, they couldn't just get out in the street and start talking about how bad it was. Pointed as the people who are dissenters. They're destroying the norm. They're going to mess with your property. Going to mess with your right to own your slaves. And if you can't have slaves, how are you going to pick your cotton? How are you going to make sure that these things are done? How are you going to till your land and all that stuff? You can't go do it yourself. No. You're going to have somebody else come and do it, and you have to have that do it because that's property. You brought that slave. You saved that poor slave, right? You made that poor slave. He was just a slave and on his way to whatever. And you saved him. You made him into something good. You gave him a purpose. His purpose now is to till my land and to turn these things. So us peons, us non-elite people, we are here to serve the elite, right? We're here to make sure that their coffers are filled. We're there to be on the backbone. I had this thing talking about once about the whole thing in regards to the stock market. I've said it before, and I'll say it again because I don't know. I don't look back to my videos. I haven't been back to my other videos in a while. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's like, I think that what happens is that the stock market is kind of like a soul counter, right? Like a soul being energy counter. Based on the fact that, here you have these people, right? We are just in the midst of, what's the word? We are in the midst of buying stuff. And as we buy stuff, that helps the company can rise up in stock value, stock prices, right? And so what happens is that as the prices go up, it's more human energy that's involved in that. More human energy at stake, Please stop. Okay. More energy at stake. And so what happens is that's human energy that's being used. So for example, if you are not, if a company, when people watch the stock market, it's almost like soul, and soul is equal to energy, So you have a thing with energy, and people have energy that they put towards something, and it creates life. It's like this thing with the CV. It's like, people were having the regular flu, and they're getting regular sick, but they had to keep on adding this, and then no one's getting sick from the flu anymore. No one's getting sick. No one's sick from that anymore. Because why? Because everybody's sick from the CV. Everybody's sick from that now. Everybody who dies is because of CV. You get hit by a car, CV. You get eaten by a shark, it's a CV. You're getting run over by a lawnmower, it's CV. Everything is CV. Is it not dying with CV? It's dying because they say no. It's like whatever situation. So when my mother died, she, according to what people said, the last thing you die with. So my mother died of chemotherapy and morphine is what killed my mother. Okay, and it wasn't the what do you call that thing? The cancer? No, it wasn't the cancer at all. It was according to how this thing works, according to how the science works now, where everybody said the last thing is what it is that you died from. So my mother died from morphine, and she died from chemotherapy because that's what killed her. That's what caused her to die. And so I look back at this stuff, and I can't find any parking anywhere. I look back at this thing and I'm trying to find what's the best way to make sense of all this. The best way to make sense of all this is that people want your energy. They want you to focus on their thing, their products, their ideas. They want your energy, you know. And even to an extent, it's like kind of like YouTube has the same kind of built-in thing where they want your energy. They want your energy. So we're here putting videos on YouTube and stuff like that, and making YouTube rich, you know. And then they decide to demonetize people's channels because you don't say what they want you to say, or that you're stuff and they don't want you. There's all a bunch of stuff that's just ridiculous. I understand, and what really bothers me, what's my goose? I'm sitting and talk to you for a moment. I pick this car, but what cooks my goose, yo. All right, is this. What cooks my goose is this, right? We all know that there's a certain level of truth in all situations, right? There's always a drop of truth somewhere that we need to be mindful of. And with that mindful piece of truth, it's like when does the truth become like true? You have this thing where we worked in church buildings. I worked in law firms. I worked in garment alterations. I worked in insurance companies. I've worked for people, private. I work for commercial, like private owners. I work for a commercial. I've worked for myself. I've worked with eBay. I've worked with Amazon. I've worked with a lot of different people. Like, I try to be very industrious in terms of what we do. And one of the things is that there is always a level, like the acceptable level of the corruption. I was going to write a story about this, a blog. Actually have a blog, and one of it, the acceptable level of corruption. Like, in every institution, there's a level of corruption in there. It's like there's people who know what's right and wrong. It's spelled out in the laws, and they have all these long meetings. And they walk you through the bylaws and the policy, the notice of services, and all that stuff. And they walk you through all this stuff. And then there's stuff where people just kind of let things slide, And I mean, they do it. There's it's kind of one of those things like somebody was saying something, and we were watching Transformers, the Bumblebee one, and he was saying about like how he got arrested for something, and then he was like, yeah, we the government, we know that, he knew what he got arrested for, or that they did something, and it was like we knew you did that kind of thing. It's like we have allowed you to do that. It's kind of like that thing where you're allowing a person to hang themselves, but at the same time though, there's a level where it's like this is how far you go and no further. You can only go so far and no further. So it's like when you're faced with this thing here, it's like, how much lies is enough lies for the people. So you have it where, in case you haven't heard it before, we talked about like how there's a possibility that our bodies talk to each other, and we know there's an aspect where we talk to each other. And I'll give you an example. My wife and kids and I, we all went to Washington D.C. On January 24th this year, 2020. And when we went there to Washington D.C., we went to do the March for Life. The March for Life was a Friday, January 24th. And when I was going to get there, there was a guy behind me, right behind me, like I'm sitting in my chair here. A guy right behind me on this side. And so I'm in the aisle seat, and my daughter is here, and then my wife is to my right. Actually, she was, I think, behind me, or two. She was ahead of me. She was yeah, because we had it where it's like all of us had somebody sit next to us. So it's like I was sitting my daughter was sitting next to me. Then my wife was sitting ahead of our friend with us, our friend of the family who came with us. And then right there, my wife, and then my son, and the youngest, and then I was the older two. They were sitting, I think, in front of us. So my daughter and son, to my youngest daughter, and our youngest son, and my wife, and our family friend. And then in front was my daughter and my son. And so what happened was right behind me there was a guy, and he was just coughing. He coughed the whole time, right? The whole time. And it's like one of these older fellas that you can't really ration with. He was an old guy and an elderly gentleman, and he was just coughing. And I think he tried to cover his mouth, but for the whole 5-hour trip, I got blasted in my head with the cough. I got blasted in my head with the cough. The story I'm telling about this is what happened is this, right? It was like one of those things where I was kind of like just trying to get some sleep, you know, and I was trying to get sleep because I had just finished working, and I was working at 3, and we were doing the inventory stuff, and it was like I had to be at a certain place at a certain time to catch this bus and to catch that bus. But before that happened, I was doing inventory. I was on the machines, right, and I was on this machine that's like a razor machine, and I had a box on that machine, right. I put this in the box, and so what happened? The box was on a thing, and as I was driving the machine, and I'm standing here, I hit something like I kind of grazed the wall. And when I grazed the wall, the box that was standing up fell and caught me right in my leg. So I had pain in my leg. Right. The next thing was that I had to ride my bike that night to come home, and it was at 3 o'clock in the morning, riding to come home. And then so there was right there. I had a minor injury, which wasn't a full injury. It was just I didn't report it or anything like that, but it was like one of those things where I got something on my leg, and then after that was like it wasn't damaged, it wasn't broken, it just was soft tissue, and no damage, but it was like I could feel it. It was like one of those things you get like you kind of hit your elbow on something. Well, it was like that, but the box hit me in my leg. So I was able to push it back, and then after that, I was like, I felt it in my leg, and I had to ride my bike home. And I got home, my family was waiting for me. Said, "What took you so long?" I'm like, "My leg, but it's not that bad, but." So I had that, and then when I got to the bus, and we had to sit on the bus, and it was 5 hours on this bus ride. And on the bus ride, we're sitting there, and it was like, just trying to be all comfy, and I'm sitting in this chair trying to get comfy, and this guy's coughing on me. So in the process of all this, I got sick, right? And when I got sick, it was like, I don't get sick for long. I get sick for like one day, right? And it's not like a ongoing, like I'm sick for like many days, but just one day I was sick. And one of the things was that I was asking myself what happened there, because I mentioned before, listen to Andrew Kaufman and listen to different people who I really like, doctors, Dr. Andrew Kaufman. There was a part where he said about like how you can't catch a virus, so you can't catch a virus. You can catch a bacterial infection because a bacteria it's a living thing. You can catch a fungal infection because that also is a living thing, but you can't. He said you can't catch a virus. So if that was the thing, so what actually happened there? This is my prognosis. I could be wrong, and I'll just start with that. My thought was a matter of like this guy coughed on me. It was the height of my fears. I was afraid to be late. I was afraid that maybe I hurt my leg even worse than it was, and it wasn't as bad as it could be. But then that I had it was late. I was afraid. I was afraid to be late. I was gonna miss the bus. I was afraid that my leg was gonna like be damaged worse than it was. I was afraid. I didn't sleep well that morning because I had to be cramped up, and for 5 hours I had to ride from New York to Washington D.C. We go to this protest, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen there. We heard the president was going to be there. We know there's going to be a lot of police presence there, and we weren't sure exactly what was going to happen there. So you have that anxiety approaching. You have the anxiety of going to this thing, and then you have this guy behind me coughing, and I'm here with my kids, making sure my kids are okay on a bus I'd never been before, and it was going to a place that I've been to before, but not in this situation and capacity, like a March for Life. This is my very first March of Life I ever did, and so it was a very wonderful experience. But it was like I felt somewhat sick. I put a video up before about the March for Life. Anyway, long story short, one of the things I thought was interesting was that I got sick, but it only lasted for a day, because one, praise God, I have a very, very strong immune system, and two, is one of those things where it's like, I think it was my own mind, and according to what I learned about the whole thing with exosomes being the same size as the CV, the exosomes, and they're all being equal size with the same ACE receptors, the angiotensin catalytic enzyme 2, ACT, ACE2. Those are the same size of receptors on that. And what happens is like the same size, same. And what an exosome does for the body, like the CV, they say it's the opposite. They say CV does opposite what the receptors do. So what it does is this captures any agent that's a thing. It captures it and it locks it with its receptors, and is able to take it and make it into digest it really. And so viruses are just proof that there was something. It's kind of like destroyed asteroids or something, or something in space, or I don't know in space, but the disaster, like a volcano exploded and things underneath came up. So long story short, I just want to say a few things. They say proof of an injury is a virus. The virus is not cause of injury, is what he's saying. It's a proof of injury, that there was an injury and that our body had made exosomes to show it. So they say, so what happens, well, in the case of this guy and I got sick, was that not that he was sneezing and I got sick from him sneezing, it was my body was already weakened. And so I think, I don't have any backing on this, so this is just my hypothesis here, that if a person is sick and our bodies talk to each other, if you start yawning and I start yawning, and I yawn and you yawn, what happens is that, or I yawn, I'll see you yawn, I'm like, and you will yawn too, because what happens, your body just has this natural response to yawn. So I yawn, you yawn. So if you're sneezing on me, it's going to tell my body to sneeze too. And what's interesting about that is, like, maybe it's talking to maybe he threw some exosomes at me, maybe he threw some kind of his stuff at me, or maybe it was just like because my body was weakened at that point. That from the bike thing and the leg thing and the late thing and the bus thing and all those other things, and then the sleep deprived thing, and having worked the whole day thing, just being like all around just my vitals were low, kind of thing. My immune system vitals were low. That my body, when he sneezed, it was to tell my body, say, hey, this is a scenario, this is a situation. What happens here is that you're in need of cleansing. So get rid of that boogers. Get rid of them sinus stuff. All right, start making all them phlegm and them boogers. And it's time to do a detox, get clean out, and you're gonna be sick for a few days with with a sore throat. You're gonna be sick with all the other stuff coming out of you. And what's gonna happen in a few days? You're gonna be fine because your immune system is gonna be refreshed and renewed. And that was it. I wasn't sick again after that. Praise God. And so, I mean, maybe like a little minor or something, but it wasn't like that long. It wasn't that long. It wasn't as torrential as it could have been. We did I did 40 days of inventory, 38 days of inventory. Then it went from cutting Christmas trees to inventory to this whole CV thing. So finally, I'm gonna take a break and take some time with my family, and spend time with them and do some wonderful things. Like tonight when I watch a movie. So I'm going to go and relax and thank God for an opportunity. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me ramble for a little bit, but for the most part, I just want to say that thank God for this opportunity to have a channel where I can actually talk to people and be able to minister and share. And I'm just thinking that what, it's like one of those things where thank God for this. And so a long time in the making. I had a channel for many years, and just getting more free with it. So just want to say, just pray for God to give us all wisdom because I'm not really sure exactly what we're supposed to do. But there's a verse that I have my son and my son and I were memorized, and it was in James chapter 1. James is a very good book, by the way. If you get a chance to study any book in the Bible, it's James. And it goes, James chapter 1, it says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have a perfect work, and you perfect and entire, lacking nothing, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Yeah. There you go, butchering the verse. But it goes, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God to give, who gives to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven of the wind and tossed. Let not a man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. There's a part that goes really kind of complex. Talks about the flower of the field. The sun is risen with burning heat. I can't remember that part. I got to go back and do it again. But it's like that verse is such a cool verse. But the part that gets to you is like, blessed men endure temptation, for when he's tried, he shall receive the crown of life. The Lord promises them that love him. So it promises to have the crown of life, which is awesome. The crown of life. I was talking to my son about this thing called the crown of life. How the crown of life is something. The crown of life is something where you are able to do great and wonderful things. You're able to do wonderful things because that means you have a nugget. You've achieved mastery in life. A crown of life. You achieve. When you do like you win a race, you get like you get prizes. You get first place, second place, gold, third place. But you get a crown of life for achieving something in life that requires mastery. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I'm at 29-minute mark. Thank you for listening to my life. I just want to encourage you and say, listen to James chapter 1 if you can, the whole thing. It talks so much about wisdom and the application of wisdom. It says, do flee, it says pretty much run away from things that can harm you, and not just harm you like, physically, but harm you spiritually, and endurance. The whole book of James, I'm going to read it to you at some point. I'm going to go through it verse by verse, but one thing I thought about that, or James chapter 1, at least, and then one it is that I think about how wonderful it is to be able to just be able to share that with you. So God bless you. Talk to you soon. Thank you for watching. All right. Peace and God bless. All right. Bye. Please like and subscribe.